Ethan sat alone in classroom 214, his feet dangling above the floor. The late afternoon sun painted long shadows across the desks. Ms. Rachel Carter, his third-grade teacher, stood by the window, her arms folded tightly. She wasn't angry. She looked shaken. Ethan noticed her hands tremble slightly as she turned around. "Ethan," she said softly, "your parents are on their way." His stomach dropped. He searched his memory. Had he talked too much? Failed a test? Broken a rule? Ms. Carter pulled a chair closer and sat across from him, forcing a gentle smile. "You're not in trouble," she assured him. "But sometimes, adults need to talk about things kids shouldn't have to carry alone." Across town, Mark and Lisa Miller rushed through traffic, confused and uneasy. Mark gripped the steering wheel harder than usual. "Teachers don't call parents like this unless something's wrong," he muttered. Lisa stared out the window, her heart racing for reasons she couldn't explain. The school's name on the caller ID had stirred something old inside her, a memory she hadn't visited in years. When they arrived, the principal, Dr. Henry Wallace, greeted them with a serious expression. He led them not to a disciplinary office, but to a small conference room. Ms. Carter was already there. And when Lisa saw her face clearly for the first time, the room seemed to spin. Rachel Carter looked back at Lisa, equally stunned. They knew each other. Years ago, long before Ethan was born, they had shared a different life, a different pain. A past neither of them had ever spoken about again. Lisa sat down slowly, her hands clenched in her lap. Mark noticed the silence, the tension, the way his wife's breathing changed. "Do you know each other?" he asked carefully. Ms. Carter nodded. "From a long time ago." Dr. Wallace cleared his throat. "The reason we asked you here isn't about Ethan's grades or behavior. It's about something Ms. Carter noticed, something important." Rachel took a deep breath. "Ethan wrote an essay last week. It was about where I come from. He wrote about feeling scared when his parents argue, and about worrying he might be too much trouble to love." Lisa's eyes filled instantly. Mark's chest tightened. They had argued lately, about money, about time, about stress. They thought Ethan didn't notice. Rachel continued, her voice breaking. "But what shook me most wasn't just the essay. It was his handwriting. And his words. They reminded me of someone I once knew very well." She looked directly at Lisa. "Your younger brother." The air left the room. Lisa covered her mouth. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible." But it was. Years ago, Lisa's brother had struggled deeply, feeling invisible, unwanted, crushed by adult problems he never created. Rachel had been his student teacher back then. She had tried to help. She had failed. And the guilt had followed her into every classroom since. "I became a teacher because of him," Rachel said quietly. "Because I promised myself I'd never ignore the signs again." Mark finally understood the weight in the room. This wasn't about punishment. It was about recognition. Ethan was brought in then, confused by the tears he saw. Lisa knelt in front of him, holding his face. "Sweetheart," she said, voice shaking, "do you think we don't love you?" He shrugged, eyes down. "Sometimes, you both look so tired." That moment broke something, and healed something, at the same time. The meeting lasted over an hour. Not about blame. Not about mistakes. But about listening. About slowing down. About how children carry silence like a burden. Dr. Wallace spoke about support resources. Rachel spoke about partnership. Mark and Lisa spoke about fear, of failing as parents, of repeating the past without realizing it. That evening, at home, the Millers ate dinner together without phones, without shouting, without rushing. For the first time in months, they talked. Really talked. Weeks passed. Ethan smiled more. His essays changed. He wrote about feeling safe. About being heard. And Ms. Carter? She finally forgave herself a little. Because this time, she had spoken up. Years later, Ethan would remember that afternoon, not as the day he was scared, but as the day the adults in his life chose honesty over silence. Because sometimes, a teacher calling after school isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of healing. If this story moved you, like the video and subscribe.